So there's been a lot of hype that I've been seeing lately about this GSD framework, which has over 5,000 stars on GitHub right now, and there's tons of hype on Reddit about it. And I've also seen a lot of hype around similar frameworks for Claude Code that augment Claude Code with skills and custom commands that fill in like various gaps that it has. In particular, one problem that Claude Code has is with memory and project management. And GSD is trying to fix exactly that problem. As a professional product manager, this is something I think a lot about. It's a huge part of my job, which is like making sure that our product is heading in the right direction and that the engineering and development efforts are moving us towards like the goal that we actually want to get to. So how do we track that? How do we track what we need to do and how that relates to code changes we need to make? That's a big problem area, and right now that's not yet solved in Claude Code. And so there are a lot of frameworks that are coming up around this, and I'll cover more of those in future videos. But this is just one that I've been recently seeing a lot of hype around. So as I mentioned on the GitHub page, you can see it has like over 5,000 stars, and it's just picked up in the last couple of weeks. And I originally came across this in a Reddit post. I follow this Reddit called Claude AI, and this was posted a couple of weeks ago. And then more recently, I've seen a lot more posts about it. Like here's one. I think this is by the actual author himself. Um, so anyway, project management for coding AI agents. Let's do a review of this and see, like if it delivers what it promises, what's good about it, and what isn't. So we're gonna next jump into my coding environment here. And here's an outline I have for this video. Like, so this is the overview. We're going to talk about project management for Claude Code. We talked about it doesn't have any native features built in for this, and GSD promises to fix this. This actually is, yeah, around like 5 or 6,000 stars. So I built a little test project that I'm going to use to test it out. It's a healthcare AI agent. It's for the healthcare industry. Let's say it does two things. One is you can extract patient records. Like if you give it a transcript of a conversation, it'll populate like a patient record. And the second thing is it can generate like a summary report of a patient. Let's actually just jump into this and see what the product I have in mind is. So this is just a demo. It's something that's simple enough to demo, but it's also complex enough that like it's meaningful and there's something that I'm actually interested in building personally. So it helps doctors populate medical records from transcripts, and we don't need to talk in detail about the requirements for this, but it's a pretty simple thing. It has two sub agents. One can create a record, one can generate a report, and I put in some info about the technical details of this. So this is kind of how I like to get started when working on any project. First, I generate like a requirements document, or you can call it whatever you want. Like maybe it's a planning document or a vision document or something. There's something we do in big tech companies a lot. Like when you start a new project, you'd start with a vision and strategy, and then translate that into some kind of requirements or roadmap before you start like executing. So the vanilla version, what I would do is just take this and pass it into Claude Code and ask it to start building. So this is actually I did this yesterday. This CC version is what I built with Claude Code, and this GSD version is what I built with the GSD framework. And we can talk through these a little bit. But the point is, like this Claude Code version, it just builds the app for you and it gives you a little README. But there's no way of tracking like what work was done, what we need to do in future, what fixes are left to do, what improvements we need to make. And so after you do this and you come back to this project, let's say tomorrow or a week later, you've had to rely on your memory to know like what you're going to do next, what improvements you're going to make, and that's not documented anywhere. And that's actually the entire problem that this GSD framework is trying to solve. Um, so I have a new folder here. Let's actually just jump into um, a new tab and let's go into framework. So let's go back here to this GSD GitHub page and see what the instructions are for installing this. Um, oh, right, here we are. npx get shit done cc. So I'm actually not entirely sure why this is packaged with npx. I think potentially it could be packaged with the Claude Code plugin system, but I think maybe there's some generation of files and things for which we need this. So anyway, let's type this in, and then it says, okay, we're going to install this. Okay to proceed. Yes. Then what happens next? So it asks where you want to install. In this case, we're going to choose local because it's just for this project. I don't want it everywhere. And that's it. We're done. So then it tells you to launch Claude Code and run GSD help demo. So the command that they said we should start with, I forgot what it was. I think it's new project. Okay. GSD new project. And let's just, oops, type this in exactly. So, first, let's see where this is coming from. So when you type in slash, you see that all this GSD stuff is coming up. So where is this coming from? When we did the npx install, so if I show hidden files and directories, we see that there's this .claude folder in which that npx install command that we ran, it basically set this all up. So there's a bunch of agents, commands, and then there are some artifacts that the plugin needs, and then some hooks. So again, most of this could be packaged with the Claude Code plugin system. Again, not sure why it needs a node package manager. If anyone knows the answer to this, please give me a comment and tell me. All right, so these are the commands that it added, and as you can see, those are the same ones that we can see in Claude Code as well. Okay, don't know why this little, okay, it's gone now. So let's start with the one that it said to start with, which is new project. Not sure if this accepts any arguments. Sometimes commands accept arguments, and it's not clear. I guess it says here argument hint description. Um, okay, in this case, I'm actually just gonna pass in this like product requirements document that I made and pass it in here and say this is the new project I want to make. So let's see what this is gonna do. Um, okay, it says it's gonna initialize a bunch of stuff. Let's watch it here to see if anything is happening. Okay, so it already did a bunch of stuff. It created this planning directory and it says Intel, not sure what it's going to put in there. And it made a Git repo out of it, which I'm actually not a huge fan of. Like, it didn't ask me if I want to make it a Git repo. In my case, actually, it doesn't make sense for this to be a Git repo because this is in like a larger project called YouTube and then health. So it doesn't know whether like I want this to be a Git repo or not, but whatever, that's an assumption. It also, for whatever reason, it the questions that it asks just come up in this chat window over here. It doesn't use the planning ask question tool. I'm not sure why that is. Okay. So then it has some more questions. After extraction, what should the customer do? Let's answer this question. After extraction, yeah, just review and save. That's fine. So report gen, automated summary, that's fine. Uh, database, let's say it's just a demo. Assume less than like 100 records and keep it in SQLite. That's probably the simplest thing to do. The big three, yeah, sure. Focus on big three only for now. Okay, so it's asking a lot of questions, and maybe while this is going, I'll switch to this other tab and show what actually happens at the end of this. So as I said, this was the previous iteration of this, and you can see it actually built like a working version of this app. I ran into some Python dependency issues and couldn't get it running yet, but it made decent progress. So what it creates is stuff in this like planning folder. It starts by creating this thing called a project MD, and then there's a requirements MD, um, and then there's a roadmap which is broken down into phases. So there's phase one foundation, phase two record extraction, and phase three report generation. And then it also has this thing here where it keeps track of the current state. So what you've done so far versus what is remaining to do. And that's actually one of the most valuable parts because when you come back into this project, like Claude Code or your AI agent will know immediately like where to pick up. So and then it also has much more detailed plans for each phase. So it said there were 3 phases, right? And then there's each phase has like 0, 1, 0, 2. Like it has some like tasks, I guess, is the next level beyond a phase. So there's a plan for task 1, a summary, and then a plan for task 2, and then same for these. So each one of them have like plans and summaries. Let's go back here to the actual live version of this. So yeah, it's asking a bunch of questions. So that's the thing with this, like it just asks a lot of questions in the beginning. A lot of them are kind of not really relevant, I think. Like for example, like a hard deadline for this demo. Um, yeah, some of them are super relevant. So yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful. It makes you think through like what actually is the scope of the thing that you're building. And yeah, like I said, in the end, you get these artifacts, and then you have these neat commands. Let's actually go to this directory again in the old version of it, and then if I open up Claude here, let's see what I also want to talk about some things that I think don't really work well about this framework, which is that this entire framework assumes a very linear process of going from beginning to end with a project. Like it assumes that you start by it interviews you and then you can just tell it what you want to build. It assumes you already have all that in your head and you know exactly the thing you want to build. So like if you go back here and there are like a lot of questions that it asks you, right? Like how polished does it need to be? Can it be basic or functional, hard deadlines? The thing is, usually you don't know all the answers to these questions up front when you're starting a project, and it's not fully necessary to know that much information. Um, I think that's kind of one of the big problems I have with it, is that these are things you discover as you go along the way. Like you build an initial version and then you realize that, hey, here are some things that work about it, here are some things that don't work, and I want to make changes. Whereas this kind of assumes a very linear flow. And if you even look at the commands they've given you, is just like, add phase, complete milestones, execute phase. There's nothing in here that says, like, change the plan. So where's the command that says change plan or like, oh, I guess there's something that says update. Okay, this is just updating the actual tool itself. But suppose I change my mind, like, halfway through building this, or I built an initial version and then I'm like, well, I want it to look like something different. I want it to have different functionality. I want the UI to be different. I want the backend to be different. Um, there's really no scope for that. And for I think that's my biggest problem with it. And based on my experience building software for several years, I can tell you that this is not how like software projects work in the real world, where you just start with the requirements in mind and then linearly go through the process and finish it. That's just not how it works. That's actually called like a waterfall method of developing software, and no one really does that today. Instead, you start with a minimal MVP, like a minimally viable product, and then you keep adding on to it and changing your assumptions and revisiting what's working and what isn't. And I really don't see much scope here for how we can do that. That's, I think, my biggest problem with it. The second thing I want to say is that it's actually resulting in a lot of what I would call like context rot, which is so if you go to this project in this planning directory, there's like, okay, each of these files is like 4 kilobytes long. And it's like, at least let's just take a look at one of these and see like how big it is. If we scroll to the bottom, okay, there's like 60 lines. Um, which is not like too bad. Let's look at maybe the requirements. Is that longer? Okay, one good. It's about 100 lines. So good thing is at least the files are brief, so it's not bloating it too much. But it is generating a bunch of documents, um, which is not necessarily a good thing. Like, so there are two extremes. On the one extreme, you have no documentation about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, and where you're at. That's like just vanilla Claude Code out of the box. I don't think that's good either, but this is kind of on another extreme where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have like 20 documents in the repository, describing plans, summaries, and requirements. And the problem is they're going to go stale very quick. And then you're stuck because often, like, having bad documentation is worse than not having documentation at all. And so, like, let's see here. It says, like, okay, web chat interface with Chainlit and SQLite. These are just like assumptions we made in the beginning. They might change over time, and then it's kind of very difficult to change. Like, I don't know, like, which of these, like, 20, 30 files I would have to go through to change this assumption. Maybe we could ask Claude Code to do it for us. But yeah, I would like to see like some native commands provided here that can actually um, handle like changing requirements. And I think that's kind of a big thing that's missing. It's actually funny that if you go to the GitHub repo, the way this is positioned is it says other spec-driven development tools make things way more complicated. Uh, okay, so that's interesting because I actually think this one is like almost too complicated, and this person says he's not a 50-person software company. So when I saw this description, I was like, oh, cool, this is going to be like a really lightweight thing, but in my opinion, it's not very lightweight. It is like pretty heavy, and like I I struggled with that. But yeah, I actually haven't tried these other ones out, BMAT and SpecKit. I've heard about them. There's also something called Taskmaster that I've seen a lot of reviews about, and people have been using them. So yeah, I think I'm gonna make some future videos checking out some of these other frameworks as well. And then I'm actually trying to find like a simpler framework that I think is better, or like I might build one myself. Let's see. I'm going to go through this journey and share some more videos with reviews of other frameworks. And if I build my own, I'll share it here. Cool. Well, hope you learned something about this GSD framework and how to use that to have better project management with Claude Code. Let me know if you found this interesting. Leave me some comments. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to see. I'm getting back into doing a lot of development work with Claude Code, and right now I'm exploring some of these frameworks. So if there's something you want to see a review of or go through a demo of, please let me know, and I'll be happy to work on that. All right, thank you guys. See ya.